Hello everyone, I hope you're taking it easy and your day has been great thus far. For this video we'll be going through a unboxing and review of the Deluxe class B-127, also known as Cybertron and Bumblebee, and this is part of the Transformers Studio series. In fact, this is release number 70, and B-127 is obviously part of the Transformers Bumblebee movie, and I believe this was probably released, I think, I was going to say 2021, released sometime in the past. We'll stick with that. I think it would have been 2021 because I think we're up to number 86, 87 in terms of the releases, so yeah, let's assume last year. So jumping into another studio series, not that it took long really because Blitzwing wasn't too far in the past. Going back to a Deluxe class figure this time around, but still keeping with a bit of the Bumblebee theme on account of the recent Transformers Playmo sets that I've been doing. So this will hopefully help do some comparison stuff later on once the kits are built. So here we have the front of the box for B-127, still sporting the plastic window. So a nice CGI shot of B-127 in his Cybertronian look. We have him in his robot mode here, and we can probably see his primary weapon over there as well, and a little bit of his backdrop, which I believe will be Cybertron, as it should be. So that's the front of the box. Side of the box, so a nice big 70 Studio Series and B-127's head and Deluxe class. Another shot of him in his robot mode, top of the box. So that's not too bad. Your usual Studio Series Deluxe class box. Terms of the back, so we have a 20-step conversion, B-127 in his robot mode and his Cybertronian alt mode. So in terms of the movie scene, we're looking at the Cybertron Falls scene, which would have been around the beginning of the Bumblebee movie, if I remember correctly, when the Autobots are evacuating Cybertron. And then we have a nice shot of B-127 against his backdrop. So there you go. So that is the back of the box. So now that we've had a look at the outside of the box, I will open up B-127 and then we can have a better look at his included contents. And with everything now out of the box, so we have B-127 as we expect to have. Not too bad. We'll have a better look at him in a moment. We have his weapon, instruction manual, and backdrop. So, because the backdrop does take a bit of space, so as expected, it is Cybertron with the number 70 there. And if we were just to put B-127 there, just to give a rough idea of what he would look like against his backdrop, definitely not too bad looking. There will be some better pictures and stuff taken, and well, they'll be put on my Instagram, and probably a corresponding short as well, just to have a look at some of the posability and other bits and pieces of B-127. So definitely check out Instagram for those, and the short will also be on YouTube as well. But that is B-127 on his backdrop. So thank you very much, Mr. Backdrop. We will now put you to one side. So B-127 and everything else. So what I will do is do the usual, put him to one side, have a look at his manual. So B-127, Studio Series 70, front of his manual. So the manual will be at least 20 steps. So the first few steps we'll start looking at his chest section and his back kibble, and doing some various transformations there. Moving on to his arms and then his legs. And basically finalizing his external chassis. So definitely not a bad looking Ultimate. Quite like it. I think Cliff Jumper will have a very similar. It appears that in both his robot mode and his vehicle mode, his weapon can be stored somewhere. So in his vehicle mode, it will attach into the inside of his top before you fold it over. Obviously in robot, he can hold it. And it looks like it will also store behind his head in his back kibble area. Quite cool. We'll definitely have to have a look at that. And just looking at the very last page, the next promotional item is for the Autobot Dino. Or Dino. I believe it was Dino. Or Mirage, depending who you ask. So that was a quick look of his manual. In terms of his accessory, it is his blaster, which we have oddly enough seen in a model kit form. So in terms of putting it into his hand, so it will equip that way. It does look like it is only geared towards the one hand, so this other hand will forever be open-fisted. Saying that though, once you put it in there, it does take a little bit to get out. Will it actually? No, unfortunately not. The way that it's been designed is that it does lock very nicely into his right hand to make it look a lot more seamless. So that is the weapon equipped. Now, because we've seen it in the manual, in terms of weapon storage, I believe it just... Does it literally just sit in there? Him standing, by the way. So he does stand on his own. Okay, let's just have a quick look at this. So... maybe if I actually do it right. Yeah, so I think the general vibe is that it just slides into his back. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. But hey, you know, it's making use of some of that backspace. It's not too bad. It's actually not overly noticeable. So that was his accessory. So definitely quite good. It does have some paint apps as well, so it is two tones. Now, in terms of B-127, now of course, me being me, I'm touching him everywhere and thus starting to transform panels left, right, and center. Now, as we know, he will stand on his own 2 feet. Yes, 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 he does. So definitely not a bad looking figure. He does actually feel small, but I do believe he is supposed to feel small. So that is the front, side, the back kibble in the back. It's definitely not terrible. It does still fold up relatively okay. But yes, on certain angles, like his sides, it is quite noticeable. But from the front, it definitely isn't too bad at all. It would be nice if some of these pieces actually lock in a bit better. We'll look at those in a minute. So that was a look of the general aesthetics of B-127. In terms of articulation, yes, his head will do 360. It will also do a little bit of up and down. I mean, technically it can do an awful lot of up and down. Whether you consider that as natural is subject to interpretation. So yes, you can definitely move his head up and down a little bit, but I probably wouldn't go doing it too far. But that 360 is still very nice. So that is his head. In terms of his arms, now it is probably capable of 360. I guess if you actually do it that way, because it is a ball joint, you will be able to get the full 360 because his arm actually won't collide with his back wheels there. So that's always good to know, but yes, it is pretty much restricted to doing it with his arm completely extended out. In terms of the elbow, he does have a pretty okay elbow bend. It also does have the ability to extend back a bit. It looks a little unnatural, but that's okay. There's also some swivel within the upper arm as well, so it can actually spin around as well and have that elbow joint. So that's actually some really good articulation there in the arm. Nothing in the wrist though. So that's his arms. He does have a little bit of waist, given there is a swivel there. Not too much though, because bits do start colliding. So yes, there will be a bit of waist swivel. In terms of his waist, he definitely can't do full splits, which is okay, but he can do some rotation there when I'm not, well, yes, it can pretty much do a full rotation there, which is good. Once again, why you would do it is subject to some level of interpretation. In terms of his knees, what type of knees does he have? Oh, well, I guess before we get onto his knees, in terms of the legs, they will go all the way to the front. Probably that far back before you start colliding bits and pieces. I mean, he can probably go all the way out, but that's also if you did a full side extension and then went all the way back. So those are his legs. In terms of his knee, so the knee, standard knee bend. Just be careful of all these extra panels, they will get a bit in the way. But he does have standard knee, and his feet can definitely go front and back, and it looks like there's even a socket in there, so they can also do a nice 360. So that's pretty cool. I have noticed though that, especially if you look at the underside of his feet, this is some of the clearer plastic that has been painted over. So definitely not a bad amount of articulation for a figure of his size. I'd say I'm quite happy with the amount of articulation. The kibble hasn't given me too much trouble at all. Well, yeah, the back kibble hasn't given too much trouble. It's quite secure there. Doesn't seem too floppy either. I think the only thing in his robot mode so far that has started to progressively grind my gears is just some of these side panels on his legs. They don't really tab into anything or tab into anything well. So if you were to hold on to these parts, you will probably find with a little bit of pressure, and I do mean a little bit, you'll start flipping them around. So a good example is flipping this to the back, and this one you just seem to move the panel around, which is to also be expected because it also looks like it will be part of the transformation. So probably my only grievances with the robot mode. But for the rest of it, is still very nice looking, good articulation, some good posability, good joints, and overall he does look very aesthetically pleasing. So now that we've had a look at his robot mode, I will transform him. And with the transformation now out of the way, here we have B-127 in his alt mode, and I actually quite like the look of the alt mode. The pictures don't actually seem to do it justice until you finally get to see it up close and actually transformed. So there is a top, his panels unfortunately didn't align very well, top shot view from the front. I will admit that's a very nice front view. Side view, back view, other side view, and the underside. So yeah, I'm quite impressed by the actual alt mode look. Definitely very Cybertronian looking, very sleek looking. I think my only complaint would be that some of the panels just don't seem to be lining up well. But in saying that, this was the first transformation. Obviously, being the first time, I'm still getting used to where everything transforms, so I think transform him a few more times, get used to the transformation. The panels should hopefully line up much better. In terms of the wheels, so his wheels work quite well. Pretty cool. Now I did try to actually put his weapon into his inside, but promptly gave up when it pretty much fell out from underneath the underbelly. That's okay. I will give it another shot. Although to be honest, it's the weapon. I can do anything with it. Now in terms of his transformation into his alt mode, the torso and back weren't too bad. His arms weren't too bad. There's a little fiddly bit with it. Now this arm hasn't done it very well, which I think is why some of these panels aren't lining up nicely. Whilst this one did. There is some tab. You might be able to see it. There is some tabbing in there that the side of the arm is supposed to tab nicely into. So it should look like this, but this arm is deciding to not do what I would like it to do. I can actually try it again. Probably not. As you can see, it's probably not the best time to try and do it because it is causing this particular panel to pop out periodically. The legs component of the transformation wasn't too bad. I think some of these panels, which were from the legs, when they do slot in, and to be honest I think they are supposed to slot in quite nicely if this particular side is any indication, whereas this side hasn't slotted in as well, and I will attribute that to this arm just not tabbing in nicely into the torso bit. Otherwise, yeah, the transformation was actually quite fun, generally intuitive. It's just getting a feel for where everything needs to tab in, which I think will underpin a lot of the alt mode looking quite nice and tidy when you can tab everything nicely in. So that is his alt mode and a brief rundown of the transformation. now that I've had a chance to see him in robot mode, alt mode, transform him at least one way. In terms of his robot mode, in terms of look, really good. I think it's quite aligned to what we would have seen in the Bumblebee movie. The weapon storage, not fully convinced on, but it does look very neat and tidy when it's equipped on his hand. It's just unfortunate it's only equipable in one hand. I'd say my only criticism of the robot mode would be just some of those panels in the legs. Depending where you put your fingers, you may not notice it. You could unintentionally put your fingers in the wrong spot and then just start moving those panels a little bit, which is unfortunate. It's not world-ending, but can add to a level of frustration. Vehicle mode overall looks really, really good. I actually do look forward to opening Cliff Jumper, because I think he's going to have the same vehicle mode as well. In fact, the Cliff Jumper video might be a bit quicker because I've had a bit of experience now. I quite like the look of the vehicle mode. It's really, really nice. Only criticism, and it's probably nothing to really be worried about. It's just that with some of the external panels, they won't sit in very nicely sometimes, but especially with this side, I do attribute it just on precursor steps of certain limbs actually tabbing into where they should, and thus making the transformation a bit neater. I mean, you can actually tell a little bit from looking at the underside that this side is nice and neat and does look quite good. This side, because the arm isn't tabbed in correctly, the paneling does look that little bit out of alignment. But that's okay. Overall, transformation was still really good. The alt mode is still pretty good. And I'm sure if I transform him a few more times, that will work out a lot better. I can't say I've still seen him actively at retail, but I would probably say overall I would actually recommend getting a B-127. I know Cliff Jumper is probably a similar take on the mold. In fact, it's probably just a redo of his head. But overall, I quite like it, and even for these Studio Series line, a lot of these Transformer Bumblebee toys, at least from what I've seen of them, I know I haven't gone through and unboxed and reviewed all of them yet, they've all been very, very aesthetically pleasing and fun to have a toy around with. So yes, I would say if you can find one, I would say grab him. I haven't decided if I'm going to leave him in his robot mode or his vehicle mode yet. I might leave him in his robot mode, but that will mean that Cliff Jumper will probably be in the vehicle mode. I actually really do like the vehicle mode look. It'll definitely be interesting to have all the Bumblebee figures all together, both robot mode and vehicle mode, just to see what they all look like. Time will tell. Thank you very much for watching this video. Feel free to leave a like, a comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the content. All of this does help support the channel, and I do greatly appreciate it. Extra content can also be found on my Instagram account, and I will say at the point of when this is finally published, there should be a YouTube short that will just have a few shots on a turntable of B-127. And there'll also be some extra content on my Instagram, so definitely have a look out for that once you see this video go up, which, to be honest, if you've managed it thus far, you've probably figured out the video was published, but that's fine, it's all good. Stay safe and take care, and I will catch you all in the next video.